Welcome to the PIERS Association podcast. We're interviewing Jake Lee with True North Injury Law, based out of South Jordan, but of course taking care of cases anywhere in the state of Utah. So let's talk a little bit about personal injury. I think mainly people think about car accidents when they think about personal injury. What would you suggest somebody does when they're first injured?
In a car accident?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing is your brain's not working all the way. So take a deep breath. It's going to be okay, right? And the things that I tell people right away is always get a police report, right? Some people, especially here in Utah, we just have great people here. They don't want to hurt anyone else.
Too nice.
They're nice, and they don't want to feel like they're taking advantage of someone. But the difficulty is when you get into a case, if we don't have a third-party narrative, what actually happened, it's a he said, she said, and it's really easy to manipulate the facts. So we want to make sure we get a police report. Secondly, what I would tell people is make sure you take as many pictures as you can of your vehicle, of the defendant's vehicle. There's cases all the time where you may not have a ton of visible property damage on your car, but the guy who hit you, his car is destroyed. And so when we get into litigation, they'll pull up these pictures and say, well, it doesn't look like much happened. It's like, oh, really? Look at the other guy's car. So when we have that evidence, that can be really valuable. And then the last thing I would say is go see a doctor as soon as you can. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but you have on your own auto insurance what's called PIP coverage. And that stands for Personal Injury Protection. It's a mandatory coverage in the state of Utah. It's a minimum of $3,000. So you get to go, you have $3,000 to go get medical treatment and get checked out. And that allows you to get documented injuries that you have and start the process of getting better.
And does it matter what kind of doctor you go to? Should you go to the ER? Should you see your chiropractor first? What does it depend on the injuries?
I think it depends on the injuries. I mean, obviously, if you're
Bleeding.
seriously injured, get in the ambulance, go to the hospital, right? But the most important thing is to document the injuries that you're having. So get to somebody. I will say if your arm hasn't fallen off or there's not some kind of serious injury, sometimes going to an ER or a primary care isn't always as productive as it could be. And so starting out with a chiropractor or a physical therapist is a great place to be. And the laws even recently changed here in Utah where physical therapists and stuff are now primary care physicians. And so you can start there and you can start that whole process.
So before you get in an accident, what are some of the things you can do to protect yourself for that eventuality?
Great question. The thing that I point out to people is you want to make sure you have good insurance coverage. Lots of people think, okay, well, this PIP, which I've just explained, I want to have $10,000 of that so that if I get in an accident, I'm going to be okay because I know I've got $10,000 of coverage. The challenge with that is many times as you start to approach the $5,000 mark, the insurance company goes, we're not sure that all this treatment is actually related to the accident. So we're going to have you come over and visit with one of our doctors that's on our payroll, and we're going to do an independent medical evaluation. And magically, the treatment you had yesterday is related, but the treatment you need tomorrow is not related anymore. And so they won't pay the rest of that coverage. So I tell people, make sure that obviously you need PIP coverage, but going over $5,000 isn't terribly helpful because you usually don't end up seeing the money over that $5,000 mark. The second thing I tell people to protect themselves is to get good underinsured and uninsured motorist coverage. And I'll talk about what the differences of those two are. Uninsured motorist coverage is for when you get hit by someone who doesn't have insurance or when you get hit and they disappear and we can't find them. So that's uninsured. Underinsured motorist coverage is when somebody hits you and they don't have enough insurance coverage to cover the damages that you have. We had a tragic case not too long ago of a motorcycle where my client had almost $200,000 in bills and the at-fault motorist had $25,000 of coverage. And so the question was, well, what do we do, right? And unfortunately, he only had $25,000 of underinsured motorist coverage. So we had a total pool of $50,000 to work with, and trying to fit that in there was almost impossible. And so the best thing you can do for yourself is make sure you have good uninsured and underinsured coverage. I always recommend a minimum of $100,000, and it usually doesn't cost that much more to get. It's $10, $15 more a month, and it can be a lifesaver if you get into a serious car accident.
Yeah, I think sometimes if people haven't been through this experience, they don't realize the ramifications throughout their lives from when they get injured. It's one thing to have injuries, but how does it affect the rest of their lives also?
Right. I mean, the statistics show that most people think they will never be seriously injured or disabled. And, the cost of living is going up, inflation is high, everything costs more. And so people are looking for places to save money. And this is one where I'd say, leave that alone, right? Like, don't take that away from yourself, because when it happens, it's not a if, it's a when. When it happens, you're going to desperately need it. And my company, it's called True North Injury Law. People like to give me trouble about it, like, oh, that's a really creative name. I bet you spent a long time coming up with it. And the truth is that we did. I wanted a name that reflected the values of my company. And I love the concept of the North Star. You always know where to find it. It gets you where you need to go, and no matter where you are, you can find it. And after a car accident, people are overwhelmed, they're confused, they're hurt, they got to get to the doctor, they're trying to get a car replacement, they got insurance people calling them, and they don't know which string to pick up first. And so to your point, what we try to be for those people is the North Star after a car accident. We say, okay, take that deep breath. You focus on getting better, and let us take the rest of this stuff off of your plate so that you can focus on getting better, and we'll meet back up in the middle and we'll get this worked out.
So when is a good time to get a PI attorney involved when you've been injured?
So in Utah, you can't make a personal injury case unless you have more than $3,000 in accident-related medical bills. And so people often think, well, I'll wait until that happens. But there's a lot of things that can go wrong before that $3,000 mark. And so I would advise you, the consultation that we do and the industry is free. And so go meet with somebody, sit down, talk through the options, find out what rights you have, so that as you go through this process, if you do decide to retain somebody, now you've got someone you can strategize with about how to move forward and make sure you're not over-treating or under-treating, and getting with somebody who can really do a good job for you.
So you mentioned that when you get in a car accident, you're not thinking okay. You're not okay. So you might say and do things that you really should not, that can hurt your case before you've been warned not to do that. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is a backwards way of saying, what should they not do when they first get in a wreck?
So you're 100% right. People naturally, even if you don't have a serious injury, there's just a lot of adrenaline going through your body. It's like, okay, what happened? Is everybody okay? My car's destroyed. So you're kind of freaking out a little bit.
You may think you're fine.
Right. And, in 4 hours, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I hurt everywhere. And so you can add another layer on top of that. I mean, now maybe you have a brain injury or something, or a concussion, and you're really not thinking right. And so the two things that I tell people not to do are, don't say you're not injured, because you don't know right now if you're injured. And two is, don't say you're sorry. A lot of people we're seeing more and more now, people are filming who they're talking to, and it's because they want proof. And so it'll show up on a camera phone. Well, they said they were sorry. I mean, they clearly thought they were at fault. And it's just something we do, like, I'm so sorry this happened or whatever. But when we get into the negotiation of the case, or if we're litigating the case and there's video evidence of a person saying they're sorry, there's an assumption that you believe you're at fault. And even if you believe you're at fault, you may not be, depending on the factual circumstance of how the accident happened. So do everybody a favor. Don't say that you're sorry, and don't say that you're not injured. Make sure you go get checked out by someone who can help you actually identify whether there's an injury there.
What about posting things on social media?
Great point. I have had cases destroyed by social media. And so I advise everybody that the insurance companies are going to be trying to find you on any social platform that you might have. So what I tell people to do is lock that down. If it's a Facebook account, change your settings so that only friends can see past and future posts. If it's Instagram, make it a request to follow page. And don't post about the accident, right? Like you can continue living your life, but don't post about the
hike
accident.
was fantastic that I did today.
Yes. I mean, I'll give you an example of this. I have a case, a pretty serious case. My client was very, very injured. He's had 3 surgeries.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't take my advice on the social media thing. And we are really close to getting the case done. And now a picture from his social media has surfaced of him riding a 4-wheeler on a deer hunt. And he's smiling. And so here I am talking about how this has had a meaningful impact on his life and all the difficulty. And they pull up this picture. It's like, well, he doesn't look like his life's too bad here.
Oh, for one moment.
Exactly. And that's what it is.
That's all they need.
It's a snapshot in time. But when you throw that up in front of a jury, for a jury, it's kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, he doesn't look that hurt to me, right? So be very, very careful about what you're posting after the car accident.
So you are also involved in the legislature here in Utah. Can you share some of the things that you're working on now?
Yeah. So I am the chair of the legislative committee for the Utah Association for Justice. And we are working hard on the primary goal of the organization is to protect constitutional rights, specifically the right to a jury trial. And so we do a lot of things to try to protect and help consumers in the state of Utah in the space of personal injury. One of the things we're really worried about right now is around the country, we're seeing something called tort reform happening. And so I'm sure everyone's going, I've heard that term, but I don't actually know what it means, right? So a tort is where another person has injured you in some way, right? So personal injury falls into the space of tort law. Workers' compensation, medical malpractice, those are all torts. And tort reform is where people are trying to limit what a person can recover if they have one of those cases.
Oh, dear.
And so in the state of Georgia this year, what happened is a law passed that, 1, capped your ability to get damages. 2, it requires the disclosure of doctors who use liens. And we can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then 3 is it allows in evidence of who's paying for your medical bills. And I'll talk about why that's a problem in a minute. So the first one is capping damages, right? This is a extraordinarily dangerous thing that is an easy soundbite to sell. Everybody thinks of the McDonald's coffee cup case, right? And they're like, well, just because you dumped some coffee on yourself doesn't mean you should win the lottery, right? And what people don't know is McDonald's had been warned 3 prior times of second and third degree burns they had caused because their coffee was so hot. And this particular lady spilled coffee on herself. She had 2nd-degree burns on her genitals. It required skin grafting and all sorts of things that was going to last over the course of her life. So she had a sizable award because of the kind of damage that had been done to her. And people like to write that off, but let's say maybe you can never work again. Or maybe I've lost my leg, right? And I can't do certain things that I used to be able to do, or now I have to have a prosthetic. People who require care on an ongoing basis, I mean, let's say you require $100,000 or $200,000 of care over the rest of your life, which might be 20 or 30 or 40 years. $1 million award sounds like a big award, but $1 million wouldn't even cover 5 years of that care that you need, right?
You're going to use it.
Exactly. So these people aren't going to Disneyland and going to Jersey and Atlantic City and stuff. What they're doing is they're staying home and they're just trying to survive. And the way our system is set up is to try to make right what was wrong, right? And so putting a cap on the damages limits people's ability to really get the help that they need. So that's the first thing that why tort reform is a bad idea that we saw happen in Georgia and is now happening in Texas and California and Nevada. And we don't want it to come here. So I'm trying to educate everybody about it. The second thing is requiring disclosure of doctors who use liens. What a lien is a doctor will wait to be paid until the case settles so that you can start to get treatment. It's just a payment option like a cash pay or health insurance or whatever. And what they're doing is they're requiring disclosure, and then they'll put the doctor up on the stand and say, you have a you're essentially an investor in this case. And so you are biased and we can't rely on your testimony because you have motive to lie. And here the doctor is just trying to do the best he can do to help this person out, and he's come up with a payment arrangement that works for them, and they're throwing him under the bus for trying to do the right thing.
For patiently waiting for
Exactly,
payment.
trying to help out their patient. And so that's another thing that happened in Georgia that we're starting to see pop up around the country. And it's not fair. It's absolutely not fair.
It's unreasonable.
We don't want to see that happen here in Utah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is health insurance. And that's a little bit more of a complicated issue, but we're seeing that pop up as well. And so what we're doing here is we're actively trying to work with legislators and educate them and pass legislation here so that we can prevent those things from happening and coming into the state of Utah.
Thank heavens, because that's going to not only protect the injured people, but the people who are trying to take care of them.
Exactly.
So thank you for those efforts, and keep us informed of what's going on.
For sure. I'm sure we'll be coming back saying,
yes,
it's here. The redcoats are coming, right? Come help us testify about this stuff.
God bless America.
Yes. Yes.
Well, it's very important work, and we appreciate it. And thank you very much for being involved with the PIERS Association, because we are all about education of personal injury and gathering the creme de la creme of people who will work together for the benefit of the injured.
We're excited to be here, and thank you so much for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us at the PIERS Association podcast.